Star Trek is ready to revisit one of its worst mistakes, and it will change the Federation forever. For nearly 60 years, Star Trek has built itself on a foundation of optimism, the belief that humanity, after centuries of conflict and division, can rise to something better. The Federation was always more than just an interstellar government. It was a symbol of unity, compassion, and the triumph of reason over fear. Yet, even the Federation has not been without its flaws. Its history, as Star Trek has repeatedly shown, is riddled with moral compromises, forgotten atrocities, and buried secrets. Now, with the franchise entering a new era through shows like Star Trek, Discovery, Strange New Worlds, and the upcoming Section 31 movie, it seems that the creative team is preparing to revisit one of the Federation's darkest mistakes, a choice so consequential that confronting it could redefine the entire future of Star Trek. And the franchise's willingness to do so might be its boldest decision yet. The Federation's myth of perfection has always been a lie. The Federation has often been portrayed as an idealized version of what humanity could become. It abolished poverty, ended war on Earth, and extended its principles of cooperation across hundreds of worlds. But as every fan knows, Star Trek has never been naive about its utopia. From the very beginning, Gene Roddenberry's creation acknowledged that progress isn't clean. It's messy. It's full of contradictions. Episodes like The Drumhead, The Next Generation, and In the Pale Moonlight, Deep Space Nine revealed the cracks beneath the Federation's shining surface. Captain Picard and Captain Sisko each faced moments where morality collided with survival. In The Drumhead, Starfleet's pursuit of loyalty turned into paranoia. And in The Pale Moonlight, Sisko's moral compromise, falsifying evidence to bring the Romulans into the Dominion War, saved billions, but at the cost of the Federation's moral high ground. These weren't one-off stories. They were warnings. The Federation's ideals are only as strong as the people who uphold them. Now, decades later, Star Trek seems ready to pull at that thread again, and this time, the implications could reshape the galaxy itself. Section 31. The Federation's moral failure returns. The most likely avenue for this reckoning is Section 31, the secretive Starfleet intelligence division operating outside Federation law. First introduced in Deep Space Nine, Section 31 represented the Federation's shadow, the unseen hand that justified every crime in the name of the greater good. They infected the Founders with a genocidal virus during the Dominion War. They manipulated events, assassinated threats, and violated every principle the Federation was built upon. And perhaps most terrifyingly, they believed they were heroes. The upcoming Star Trek Section 31 movie starring Michelle Yeoh's Emperor Georgiou promises to bring this morally complex institution back into focus. Georgiou's recruitment into the organization, despite being from the brutal Mirror universe, was always a sign of how desperate and hypocritical Section 31 had become. Now, the franchise seems ready to explore what happens when the Federation's dirtiest secrets can no longer be hidden. But this isn't just about exposing a rogue branch of Starfleet. It's about forcing the Federation itself to confront the truth. Section 31 was not an aberration. It was a symptom. The dark age of the Federation. Fans have already seen glimpses of the Federation's moral decline. Star Trek Discovery's third season depicted a galaxy where the Federation had all but collapsed after the burn, a cataclysmic event that destroyed warp travel across the stars. The once mighty alliance was reduced to scattered outposts and broken promises. While Discovery's crew helped rebuild the Federation in the 32nd century, that storyline raised deeper questions. How could an organization founded on unity have fallen apart so completely? What flaws in its foundation made it so fragile? Strange New Worlds has also hinted at this unease. Captain Pike's Starfleet is presented as noble, but it's also caught between optimism and bureaucracy. Pike frequently questions orders from above, challenging the idea that Starfleet, or the Federation, always knows best. In Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach, Pike witnesses the horror of a utopia powered by child sacrifice and realizes that sometimes civilizations choose moral decay over moral courage. If the Federation's early ideals were already tainted, what does that say about the paradise humanity built? Star Trek's next era, reckoning with its sins. In recent years, Star Trek has grown increasingly self-reflective. Picard dismantled the myth of the flawless hero by showing an older Gene Luke grappling with the consequences of his failures. from the Romulan rescue mission he abandoned to the corruption within Starfleet itself. Now, with Section 31 and a potential Starfleet Academy series on the horizon, Star Trek seems poised to tell a story about what happens when the Federation's lies finally catch up to it. Imagine a galaxy where the truth about Section 31's crimes becomes public. Entire species might withdraw from the Federation in protest. Starfleet officers could rebel against their orders. Planets once loyal to Earth might question whether humanity's ideals were ever genuine or simply propaganda. This wouldn't be the destruction of the Federation, it would be its reckoning. And out of that reckoning could emerge a new Federation, one that no longer hides behind the illusion of moral purity. Why this reckoning matters now? It's no coincidence that Star Trek is tackling this story now. The real world is struggling with similar questions about the cost of power, the rewriting of history, and the manipulation of truth. The Federation's crisis reflects our own. For decades, Star Trek taught that progress was inevitable. But what if progress isn't a straight line? What if the only way forward is to admit that even our most noble institutions were built on compromises we'd rather forget? That's the story Star Trek has been inching toward, a narrative about accountability, evolution, and the courage to face one's own failures. It's the next logical step in a franchise that has always been about self-improvement. Georgiou, the perfect conduit for this story. Emperor Philippa Georgiou's journey from ruthless tyrant to reluctant hero is the mirror of the Federation's own struggle. She embodies moral ambiguity, a character forged in cruelty who learns empathy through exposure to Starfleet's ideals. But she also understands something that Starfleet doesn't. Utopias are fragile because they refuse to acknowledge their own capacity for evil. In her Section 31 mission, Georgiou could become the Federation's mirror, forcing it to see what it has become and what it still could be. Her outsider's perspective gives her the freedom to challenge Starfleet's hypocrisy in ways no loyal officer could. And if she succeeds in reforming Section 31, or dismantling it entirely, she could set in motion a transformation that changes the Federation forever. This wouldn't just be a story of espionage and intrigue, it would be a story about redemption, both personal and institutional, from idealism to honesty, the Federation's next evolution. If Star Trek truly revisits the Federation's moral failings, it won't destroy the utopia fans cherish. Instead, it will make it stronger. The Federation's beauty has always been in its willingness to learn. Each era of Star Trek has redefined what it means to be better. The original series imagined unity in diversity. The next generation imagined peace through diplomacy. Deep Space Nine confronted the cost of that peace. Discovery and Picard have explored renewal after collapse. Now, the next phase could be about truth, the courage to admit imperfection without abandoning idealism. By revisiting its worst mistake, the creation and tolerance of Section 31, Star Trek can finally complete a moral arc 6 decades in the making. The Federation's evolution from naive idealism to self-aware integrity might be the franchise's most meaningful transformation yet. The future of Star Trek depends on its past. For Star Trek, the future has always been about more than warp drives and strange new worlds. It's about who we choose to be when confronted with our own contradictions. If the upcoming stories truly dare to expose the Federation's hidden sins, from the